I am Mr. Taiso Solvent Makaso, taking you in a CTM, that's classroom teaching management. The first and foremost thing is to focus on the ELO1, key features of effective teachers and teaching. On 1.1, it's to define the concepts. Teaching, which is defined as one-way process of knowledge transmission. Right? We come to education, which is a process that involves teaching and learning on desired knowledge, skills, and values. Training, which is defined as preparing people in a narrow way for some job, position, or function. We come to learning. Learning is defined as making changes to our existing knowledge, thinking, feelings, and behavior, thus a method of processing information. And finally, we go to exit and culminating outcomes. Which is defined as the long-term outcomes needs to develop internalized performance abilities that really matter to students beyond schooling. 1.2, the focus here is comparison. That is comparing LCE and TCE paradigms. LCE we mean learner-centered education, and then TCE we mean teacher-centered learning. Paradigms means methods. Let's come to LCE. It's kind of transmitting knowledge, learning subject content, focus on teaching activities than learning. TCE, on the same note, teacher-centered education. The teacher talks down to learners. See the difference? Learners are lectured. Teachers does not attend to learners' feelings. And teachers evaluate on learners' learning programs. What's all about LCE in this note? Education is more than going to school. Focus on learning activities. Subject knowledge is applied to real life. And the teacher uses and refers learners to many sources. Learners have responsibility to their own learning. And teachers are caring, attentive, encouraging to teacher, and teachers evaluate themselves and learners at the same time. Let us come to ELO1 on explanation of the basic features of competency-based education, CBE. He has declared that education is first and foremost about preparing people for life. Competencies are selected with input of stakeholders. That's very important. That it means involvement. Detailed training material are keyed to the competency to be achieved, etc. Let's come to the method of instruction that involve mastery learning. Satisfactory completion of training is based on achievement of all specified competencies. Thank you. Let's come to 1.4 on description or describe features of adult learning, andragogy. What are the assumptions? Assumptions are the following. As individuals mature, self-concept moves from dependency to self-directed being. Thus, a growing reservoir of experience becomes increasingly as learning resource. Readiness to learn grows as they understand value of education. And there is priority for adult teaching and learning. Right? Very important, noted as NB. There is a tight fit between learner-centered education and CBE, pedagogy, on page 29 Ctm module, where the author is Engelbridge. Let us come to the explanation of roles of effective teachers. Effective teachers have professional knowledge. What I mean by professional knowledge, that is the heart of the profession, especially in education. They have professional values. When we talk of values, values is differentiated from knowledge. I may give an example of values, which is respect, etc. It's one of the values. Or unity. You go forth mentioning the values. And then effective teachers have professional practices, the skills. Be knowledgeable, you have to practice. Knowledge in practice. That's important. And then professional relationships. To explain roles of effective teachers, you need to explain each of them, and no other treatment is accepted apart from explaining. Let us come to the discussion of principles underpinning effective teaching. Underpinning might be a strange word to the students. Underpin means to support. So this is to discuss principles supporting effective teaching. That's to focus at the attention of learners. Focusing the attention of learners is very important in this undertaking. You have to understand the learner, understand the learning process, provide supportive and challenging environment, and also establish learning partnership. Thus, to discuss, most of students miss the interpretation involved in discussion. To discuss, you need to unpack in the way of showing their weaknesses and the positive points, or likely to say advantages and disadvantages. So your focus here is not only to explain or mention items, but you need to mention items and then show the positive and negative terms of the items. For this, what I've mentioned, I can direct you to page 35 of the textbook, Ctm, by the same doctor I've mentioned. ELO2, it is to describe temporal classification of teaching strategies. The first is direct instruction strategy or deductive, in brackets, pure teacher-centeredness, teacher-centered education. Second one, that's indirect instruction. That's inductive strategy. This is learner-centered or referred to inquiry, interactive strategy, which is cooperative. Colleagues, there is difference here between direct and indirect, where you are referred to direct as to teacher-centeredness, and then indirect, learner-centered education or inquiry, kind of benefiting from education. Interactive strategy, which is cooperative. In learner-centered education, there is kind of engaging learners into the mainstream, which differs with teacher-centered education. Although we cannot do away with teacher-centered education because there are some aspects important. We come to experiential learning strategy, learner-centered also, and independent strategy. Right. How do we choose an appropriate strategy? One of the items in choosing the appropriate strategy is age and development level of learners. That's very important. Age and development level of learners. You have to know the age that you are dealing with. It might be the heart of the program also. Of course, you cannot come with a strong language when approaching the grade 1 learners. So we have to know the age and the development level of our learners before we give them treatment. The next, what learners always know, is very important. This comes from home. It's where it emanates. You have first of all to find out what learners know from home background. We come to the nature of the subject matter content. That's proficiency now in the subject, your know-how. Intended outcomes of the lesson, what is expected of the lesson. Let's come to available time, space, and material resources. Also one of the aspects to cover. Time is well known, space, and material resources. Available setting versus setting required. What you have in place against what you want to be or to be in place. So available setting versus setting required. That should be a very important and a point and one of the yardsticks. How the strategy fits teachers' teaching style. Does that strategy fit the teacher's style of teaching? Right? We come to the advantages and disadvantages of a particular strategy. You know, this point directs us to discussion. It means that you have to discuss it in your own mind. The strategy chosen should look at the advantages or merits and disadvantages, the demerits of that particular strategy, for you to be able to apply the strategy to benefit your students. Let's come to ELO2. explain the VAC approach. That's abbreviation. V stands for visual. A stands for auditory. And K stands for kinesthetic. Visual. Visual from vision, what you have to see. Learners have to see pictures, diagrams, videos, visit real places, etc., where learners have to see something. In this approach, VAC, I think you are now aware of what visual is all about seeing different things that involve in your teaching. Let's come to auditory. That's about now hearing and listening. There is a mistake interpreted in now teaching strategies, because you find that some teachers go to training, after all they don't implement the things. In this idealism, we are trying to say that auditory is about hearing and listening. Learners should not just see. 75% of learners might just see what you produce and what you give to them, right? Well, a few of them might not be in the mood because they want to hear something in form of hearing and listening. So we should fully equipped when we go to teaching. Finally is kinesthetic, which is about physical activities and direct involvement, building and touching things in learning. You see, our learners, we don't expect them to be in the classroom for many years, but they're in the mainstream to overcome or not. And then we should prepare them that when they go out in the field, at least they should implement the knowledge they have achieved to survive the bad situation that might come. Right? So this approach is of utilitarian, meaning very important, because it covers all sectors of the mind. A human being is a broken being. So we need to approach a human being, for example, a learner, in different approaches. That is about VAC approach, VAK. We come to ELO2 on multicultural learning in primary settings. The term multi means many. Culture, different culture. So multicultural, it doesn't mean that you are an island to a certain situation, especially in primary settings. Settings means places. In this situation, for you to demonstrate multicultural learning, in other cases, you may invite church leaders or famous people, important people, known people from various tribes, societies, denominations, etc., to talk to the learners. And then learners won't take you for granted or take a certain society for granted. They need to be in the situation of multicultural. Multiculturalism is a good term in teaching, because in your region where you are, you might have learners from different backgrounds, different cultures. How do you treat them? We will treat a child according to the tribe where she comes from. That is now something paid. Treat all children the same way. Multicultural learning is a big weight in education. Accept numerous traditions. Colleagues, you need to accept traditions. You need to accept cultures, dressing styles, and nutrition. Some of your learners might take species of frogs as part of their menu. How would you address this in class? To denounce this, or to degrade them, or promote them? That's why it's important to take all learners at the same level, irrespective of what culture or tradition they follow. This transforms learners to learn. That's the advantage. It transforms learners to learn from each other for quality thinking, etc., or accept each other for social development. That's what we do, and what we have to do. The main purpose of multicultural learning is to ensure that quality education takes place. Because if learners themselves, they won't discriminate each other, they will take each other as important, they will respect each other, culture, etc. This is very important in nowadays education. Let us come to ELO3. Analysis of instructional planning. This is the heart of teaching and learning experiences. A teacher has to know the steps and stages when planning for a lesson and what is expected of him, her, during delivery. I've said from the beginning that this is the heart of the education process. Education defined as the process of transmitting knowledge, skills, and values. In which way? Your lesson planning should be of quality. Let's come to the evaluation of steps and some ingredients for every step, which is a necessity. Each lesson introduction. Everything has its introduction. The lesson too should have the introduction. After you have, put everything across about you, your name, time, all those aspects, before you come to introduction. Introduction is to get learners into the mood of the lesson. Otherwise, it's boredom. By boredom, I mean they will feel tired if you don't engage them. So your introduction should be live and bring things together. Subject knowledge. You should be a master. The subject. To have content. It's very important. It's the background of your purpose for teaching. You have to possess the knowledge intended before everything. And then we come to communication skills. Still in your lesson, you have to know the stages of your learners. How do you handle them? Do you handle them like people at university, at UNAM, IUM, or any university around or outside. No. Look at their stages. And then your language should suit them. We have many stages of lesson preparation, which are not mentioned here. So you have to peruse this in your study guide. We have parts such as teaching media. You cannot conduct a lesson without material where learners have to see, have to listen. That's part of teaching aids. We call it that way. As I've said from the beginning, learners need to see, they need to listen. So it should be, it should benefit learners in this situation. ELO3, evaluation of your PAL's lesson presentation using the same rubric of lesson presentation format on page 162 of CTM guide. Colleagues, I would first of all make clear of the word PAL. PAL means a friend. So here you are asked to evaluate your friend's presentation using the same rubric of lesson presentation format. All aspects, ingredients of the lesson preparation. So you need to evaluate your colleague looking at the aspects necessary to call it a quality lesson preparation. Leaders, principals, HODs in our schools used to do this. There are times when they observe lessons to see whether you are really professional. They look at the same aspects or rubrics. And then it's a make at the end of the day. So it's very important for you to be at preparedness, to see to it that the lesson preparation has everything necessary. I'll repeat that you check on page 162 of your classroom teaching management model. To evaluate, what does this verb mean? To evaluate. In the examination, if you are asked a question that requires you to evaluate, you need not to toil, to suffer. First of all, look at the verb evaluate or discuss or examine. But in this situation, I'm looking at evaluation. To evaluate means that you have to look at the weak points and positive points, negative points and positive points. Okay? That's important. Meaning that you want to find out bad things, good things in this system. That is evaluation. Now, let's come to explanation of how to create conducive learning environment. For example, in this situation, before I go further, conducive learning environment is something that can bring your effectiveness during delivery of your lesson preparation. Meaning that we teach if the learning environment is poor, then nothing will be good at the end of the day. It means that we have to bring things together to make sure that learning environment is of conducive or good for the learner to feel at home. For example, may have trees around the school ground, and under trees you have benches under. Having sports facilities, purchase digital cameras, learners can paint school walls, etc. In that situation, you are trying to at least to ensure that the learning environment is conducive. It's very important. Learners should not feel like being in prison. They should enjoy the environment. They should touch, feel, and see. That's why we have to do all these things. Trees should not be enemies around the school. Don't cut down trees. Under trees there you can set up, you can put some benches where learners sit, relax during break times, and then they feel accommodated, feel at home. Sports facilities, so important, both for girls and boys. And then we have something like purchasing of digital cameras. You know the use of digital cameras. That is to make your school life. Learners can paint the walls, etc. Colleagues, on page 167, you may enjoy how to make learning environment conducive. EL04, the roles of a teacher as facilitator of learning. Here are the roles, colleagues. A teacher is facilitator of learning. I remember this is versus teacher-centered education, where the teacher is himself, where teacher is the bank of knowledge, which is not the case. It's a facilitator. Learners should do their own learning. Let's come to the roles of a teacher as a facilitator of learning. Point number one, that is to be producer and the user of learning material. This is one of the ingredients of lesson preparation. We cannot go step in the classroom without teaching aids, teaching material. As we have said regarding the VAC approach, learners have to see, learners have to listen, learners have to demonstrate, jump around, or do whatever action. That is holistic learning. So a teacher should be producer, create your own teaching material, and be a user of that always. And then you will be an effective teacher. Subject specialist. It is difficult to intend teaching the subject well. You don't have knowledge about the subject. You should first of all have content to be a subject specialist, that you can tackle any question that comes your way, whether day or night. Third point, we have learner face and learning specialist. Look here. We are looking at the face the level of the learners, and then a learning specialist. Is how an educator or a teacher as facilitator should be. Colleagues, we have to look at the level or the phase of the learners we are dealing with in order to become learning specialists. We have a school-going population, in brackets, learners, that we are dealing with. Thus, we have to be also specialists of knowing their phases. That's very important. An assessor of learning. We can not do away with this, because the main focus here is not only to unpack knowledge every day or to teach every day without evaluating, finding the weaknesses and where learners are skyrocketing or benefiting or doing better. So we need to assess the learning. What we teach, you have to give a test at the end, or a topic task at the end, or examination. This is to ensure that you are an assessor of learning. We come to professional leader and manager. Professionalism. I'm sorry to use the heart of the teaching profession. Professionalism is very important. When you are a professional, you are a manager on your own. As a facilitator of learning, in your own classroom, you are a manager. To manage means that you have some different aspects to follow. That is to control, planning. These are managerial skills of being a manager. You need to know how planning is all about. You need to know controlling. You need to delegate your work to your fellow students or learners in the classroom situation. Or else, you do this on your own, it will be hodgepodge, meaning that a mixed thing, which will cause you lunatic and bored, something like that. So be a manager on your own. Professionalism. We approach ways in a very professional way, different to a layman. The way you talk is different to the way someone from the street talks. So, teacher as facilitator of learning need to be a professional leader and manager. And professionalism here also tells us about respecting the authority that has given us job, even government, ministry, and our leaders at institutions. Thank you. We go to model citizen. You need to be a role model to simplify this. Learners should say, I wish if I would be Mrs. or Mr. Soso, because of the way you handle things, the way you behave. You are a role model in the society. We need our Namibian teachers or professionals to be role models the society. Community development agent. We should not be agents of quagmire to the society, meaning that we should not be part of problem creation in the society. The reason why we are called professionals, it means that we have to educate our learners in the same way, that they should also be agent of the society, as we are agents of community development. EL04. We come to the roles of teachers before, during, and after group works. Right. This is part of lesson delivery also, because the lesson also carry weight on this: before, during, and after. What you have to do before delivering, and what you have to do during delivering, and what you have to do after delivering. In the learning experience situation, or when teaching, I would say before. It means that you have to engage your learners, and then during, your organization of things. Learners might feel happy because of your introductory remark, and then they will do better during organization of knowledge. And then this is expectation of good assessment at the end of your lesson experience. But now this is not a lesson, we are talking of group works. Before a group work, planning should be done. How many learners do you want to involve in a group? But I deny a situation of putting in 5 learners 4, because I've learned that this is creating boredom, because some learners won't be at the task. They will abscond what they're supposed to do. So it's better at least to use groups limited to 3, 4. May work well. During, that is organizing now what is intended after I have planned the situation, whereby at the end you have to monitor the development of the group. This is too learner-centered when we talk of group work, organization, before, during, and after. It's where learning is inspired. It's where knowledge is inspired. Because once we fail to demonstrate our skills here, to see to it that before group work, planning has to take place, or during, learning has to take place, and then at the end, to ensure that something has taken place. It is something important for our successfulness and then better results. We are singing about better results daily. We might miss somewhere, somehow. So we need to take these things into consideration. Explain the strength and weaknesses of cooperative learning. A professional teacher needs to know this. This is very important. When we talk of cooperative learning, we are talking of coming together or doing activities as a group. Now, what are the weaknesses and strengths involved in that situation? You need just to explain. You don't need to evaluate. Understand the verbs. Explain, evaluate, examine, discuss. There are different things. So you have to read that verb before writing the exam. For example, explain the strengths and weaknesses of cooperative learning. No need to discuss, no need to behave in other way around, but you need to explain, just to explain strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons. Right. Let us come to ELO5, use of textbook. We all know that textbook is a very, very important source in our lives from beginning. We have experienced this, that without a textbook and then life is messed up, which is not the real thing. We should not be textbook bound. We should put things together to go outside that. Think outside the box. Just a joke, but very meaningful. Right. Use of textbooks. Printed materials availability. It means that you have something at hand, available, printed material as it is, which need to be read and to apply the knowledge found from there. So it means that you have available printed material if you have a textbook. You won't say, I don't have a book to refer to. It's a reference. So you have printed material available. Inexpensive compared to audiovisual equipment. You know, we are not all walking tall. Some are short. Meaning that you may not afford to use audiovisual equipment, which are so expensive. But when you're using a textbook, at least, you can make a way out of that. So this is inexpensive when using a textbook. It's cheaper than to use audiovisual equipment that will need more effort. Right? Easy to use by teacher and learners. This is easily used by teachers and learners. I'm sorry to mention this, but up to now, in education, we have ICT policy, whereby some of the colleagues, I mean both teachers and learners, some, because of the situation they are, maybe areas are not electrified, lack of ICT gadgets like computers and so on. So there's no way they can make it a journey to quality education apart from a textbook. So textbook is easy to use, portable, to carry. Portable means easy to carry. Wow. And it's economical. It saves. Right. It's also designed to cover the syllabi, transforms English proficiency. As you are reading your textbook, you benefit knowledge. Those strange words, just refer to the dictionary, and then you grow maturely. You become an expert in English. That is English proficiency. Let's come to ELO6. Discuss. Discuss, colleagues. This is our starting point of the voyage. To discuss. What is it expected of you when required to discuss? Meaning that you have to look at the merits or good points, advantages, and demerits, which is disadvantages or pitfalls or weaknesses of using the following strategy, teaching strategies techniques and methods. Computer technology. Computer technology, that's part of ICT development in our country, meaning that our learners, if inspired in this line of strategies, meaning that they will be creator of their own sources, learning sources. They will visit different websites and access knowledge which will be of quality. So computer technology is of utilitarian in education and life in general. You might say that you don't understand the term computer technology. Just you got your phone, and then basically you tell what you demonstrate at the end of the day through SMSs, through internet surfing on phone, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever, during learning. But that's just basics. So when we talk of computer technology, this will involve all the gadgets of ICT, whereby learners and teachers need to know how to manipulate the keyboard, the computer, know what a server is, know what the keyboard is. Right. So it's very important. So the weaknesses, when you are discussing this, you have to refer to the current situation in our country. Are we all computer literate? It's a big no. Some people there at the cattle field are still, they're at the cattle post are still suffering. They don't know how to manipulate computer or even try to type. You see, we are in the system. We are in the mainstream, which is a process. Education is a process of engaging the whole nation or the world in transmitting knowledge, skills, values. So there is a fallacy here, a weakness. I've told you about the importance of computer literacy, that you benefit yourself, benefit learners, benefit the nation as far as quality education is concerned, because you create your own different things supplementary to your quality learning. But unfortunately, our people at the cattle posts, they cannot afford this. It's too expensive. You see how discussion should be dealt with. You need to talk about the weaknesses. You have to talk about the positive point. Open book tests. Nowadays, I don't know whether it's learner-centered education, but it's not learner-centered education problem, but the way we monitor the process. Meaning that I may give an open book test to the learners, but if not monitored, at the end of the day, there is no learning, quality learning that will take place. Because they will copy, they will memorize from materials at present or from textbooks, which means that I need to be a facilitator to see to it that that situation doesn't take place. During open books, you need to be very strict to see to it that there's no copying is taking place. Quality should take place. Field trips should be situations or strategies or techniques where learners have to experience real learning outside the classroom. We need to take our learners outside, not only classroom bound. They need to see sports fields. They need to see international airports or airports. They need to see the parks, national parks, whatever. They need to visit various important settings. But that's the importance, because they will be experienced, they will be outgoing, they will know more. Unfortunately, if not supervised, field trips ends up in disrespect. This is to say that learners, if not well coached or disciplined, no learning will come out, or reports will come out from field trips. It will be kind of fun, where they don't learn at the end of the day. So this is a technique where learners have to be given research work, which they need to present after the field trips. You see how I've went through this. I'm talking about the good part of field trips and the bad part of the field trips. I'm discussing. So this is the way we need to perform in the examinations. Peer teaching, many others. Peer teaching, we are aware of what peer teaching is all about. A teacher on behalf of the other. It's good. This is why circuits in education exists, and the clustering in education, whereby in the same cluster you can invite a teacher teaching the same subject as yours to demonstrate his or her expertise to your learners, which is very important, because you will gain more skills and strategies, and at the end of the day you will be successful or making learners achieve better grades. Unfortunately, there is also a weak point there. This needs to be explained, it needs to be communicated to the authorities, the institution, the cluster itself. Learners should be told that the reason why peer teaching is taking place doesn't mean that the teacher responsible for this subject is unknowledgeable, because they'll take it as a weakness. That no, there's something good here. So that's the situation. We need to discuss issues in that way. That's how we need to behave. EL07. It's on summary of 4 practical steps in dealing with disciplinary problems. Disciplinary problems. This is a problem in every institution in Namibia and outside Namibia. It's a global issue. Disciplinary problems. Our learners are not from the same backgrounds. No. They are not the same. They are different. And it's not their problem. Whether they are troublesome or not troublesome, especially the troublesome, it's not their problem. It's the situation where they grew up. As a teacher, you need to handle them in a good manner, professionally, so that tomorrow they become responsible citizens. So, in case of disciplinary problems, we have these 4 steps to be taken into consideration. Step 1 is description, or to describe objectively what you see and hear yourself. You need to objectively describe what you see and what you hear. That's the first step. And the second step, you need to clarify reason why via questions, through. Clarify reason why via questions. And then you have to ask questions. Why is this behavior or that behavior? Why what you see? And why does it come forth? Step 3 is to state now the infringed rule. Infringed rule is a brick, or let me calm down, a broken rule, right? Okay. Now, why important and how you feel? You come, let me give the example of the school rules. A learner might behave in a strange way in the classroom situation where classroom rules are pasted. And then that is infringement of that rule. And why is it important? Then how do you feel? Finally, the step to resolve this, you need to involve learners in finding the solution or punishment. It turns back positively or negatively if you resolve a problem on your own, because you don't have witnesses. So it's good democratically to involve our learners. They are young, but they know a lot of things. So these are the 4 steps to be involved in the disciplinary, with disciplinary programs. Following them, we achieve our objectives and goals. ELO 8, we come to the basic guidelines for delivery in presentations. This point is very important, very, very important, especially during group works where you expect feedback from your group work. You have a presenter. This is of importance. Now, during presentations is where we are rated as good presenters or paid presenters. On first point, eye contact, very important. Even during interview sessions, wherever you go, globally, eye contact is very important. Direct contact with your audience, it's important. Please take this to note. Look at your audience. Don't look down when presenting. You see, some people when presenting, they look aside and down. I don't know, scared maybe of the audience down there, which is one of the weakness. But if you keep eye contact, then you are doing a good thing in presentation. A little bit loud, slower. This is kind of been moderate. Your voice should not be so hard. You frighten people. Come down low. That's louder and slow, because you are trying to bring all minds together. Sometimes you are loud, sometimes slow. That is a philosophy in presentation. Vary your voice. I think already covered. You have to vary your voice, not be a slave to one mode of transmitting knowledge or what you want to say to the general public. You have to vary. your voice. Facial expressions. That is of importance. I would say this would go hand in hand with posture and body orientations, body languages. So important. It also shows that really you are prepared. And the proximity, closeness to your audience, it is also very important. I think this also demonstrates the quality of the message that you are going to transmit. Active listening, names, habits, and no names of participants. Colleagues, this is crucial. Be an active listener. Names, habits, and no names of participants. What do we mean by names? It means that, there is no one under the sun you can say that she doesn't lose nave. There are some times where you come so frightened, and then you feel like, let me abort this. I'm not prepared. There are a lot of people gathered here. I cannot do it. So you are trying to lose nave. So please, those situations, should try to take in a breath, and then breathe out. You come in the mood. Then you'll be able to present any multitude gathered before you. Habits. And you have to know the names of participants in that situation. Mr. Amakali, Mr. Taezo, what do you say? You see, participants will feel also been involved. And then it's good to know the participants' names. ELO 8, colleagues. Here we have 8 guidelines on how to design e.g. to list or prioritize top 3 goals, know your audience, list major points, design brief opening, body and closure, etc. Okay. That is about designing of your presentation, right? It is important also to list and prioritize top 3 goals in mind when you are designing your presentation. You see, we have talked about what you have to keep in mind when presenting, and now this is about 8 guidelines. Right, you'll get them from your study material. But first and foremost is to list and prioritize top 3 goals. You have to know your top 3 goals. This is very important. That's the first thing. Know your audience, people before you, right? And list major points. Have listed major points of what you are going to talk about, and then you design brief opening, introductory remark. Introduction is superior in any presentation. Your opening or introduction should attract the listeners, should attract your audience. They should feel, they should, take it for granted that our today's presentation is good just from the beginning, the way you bring them in, the way you motivate, the more you tell them of what is expected before you got the body. Otherwise, if you don't engage your audience in the introduction or brief opening, and then the body will be quagmire. I'm sorry to use the word nonsense. And then you should have a good closure, etc. This is logic in every presentation. By logic, we mean you have to start with the reopening, having the body, and the closure. Right. Evaluate and explain the items in ELO 8. All these items that I've mentioned need to be evaluated and be explained. To be evaluated means that you have to find the weaknesses and the strong points or strongholds. Right? We are coming to high order questions. Examine or mention all internet sites for primary teaching. Our country is rich of resources, though not everyone has access to resources. But we have done quite well since independence, because the issue of ICT policy is the policy on paper that we need to implement as schools, educators, learners. Government cannot do everything for us. We can bring things together as a school and to ensure that all these gadgets, ICT gadgets are in place so that our learners can be able to make some follow-ups or to Google. We have, internet sites like about.com, Teacher Vision, Wikipedia, etc. All these are accessed by Google. That's internet. So there should be access for internet at a school, especially from primary teaching. You see, we have 3 levels of education. We have the primary level, which does not deny priority of grade 0, pre-primary, and we have the secondary education, and finally tertiary. For the learners to be successful in tertiary and secondary, they need to be complete during primary teaching. It means that they need to be approached in that way, to be introduced to these ICT gadgets or ICT education. ICT is abbreviation of information communication technology. This is very important. We cannot go such miles without using this. Today we are complaining of end of year results, grade 10 and grade 12. This is not make for students or teachers, it's the system. I think if we could involve this in this mainstream, we could build up to ensure that when learners reach the secondary level, they are really geared, they are protected, they are given what is necessary for them to demonstrate in secondary settings or schools. We have to blame ourselves. So we have to look at the merits, advantages of using ICT, and demerits, disadvantages of failure to use them, perhaps to an availability of ICT gadgets in some schools. Colleagues, this is due to the situation. We are different. We are both vulnerable and not sometimes. But for those who are not vulnerable, they need to at least try to emancipate minds of their children in this regard, to ensure that they are aware of what internet sites are all about in the education system. Internet and the primary teaching, this starts from the beginning. Before you reach old age. Now, reaching secondary school without knowing the parts of a computer, is that really making sense? So this is the situation. So internet sites are of importance. So we need to take our little children, school-going population, in this mainstream in order to create quality education. So to examine, colleagues, dear students, to examine, you have to look at the advantages and disadvantages, as I've said. If it could be an essay, writing an essay of examining internet sites for primary teaching in Namibia, I would talk about the advantages, the goodness, the benefits of ICT education. And then finally, I would come at the demerits, the weaknesses that we experience, or learners experience. That is examination. It's high order question, part of the high order questions. I thank you. We have come to the end of the presentation on the covered set work. Please, what I would advise you, colleagues, is to look at the verbs. When we talk about explaining, examining, discussing, evaluating, or describing, it's not the same. You have to know how you behave in order to gain good marks at the end of the examination. My contact details are there underneath. Cell number 0813074890. As I've said from the beginning, I'm Taezo Makazo Solvent. My email is taezomakazo@live.com. I thank you.